Hi there, I'm Alan Neal, and welcome to the All in a Day podcast, where every weekday we try to pick one conversation from today's edition of All in a Day. So, here's today's. They don't have a steering wheel, or gas, or brake pedals. And at some point in the not-so-distant future, they could be rolling on a pathway near you. A British company that designs and builds driverless electric pods is setting up shop in Ottawa. This morning, the CEO of Aurrigo and its parent company, RDM Group, made the announcement. David Keene is in Canada for today's Autonomous Vehicle Summit, and Canada North is home to a cluster of businesses working on driverless vehicle technology. David Keene joins me by phone. Hello there.
Hi, Alan. Good afternoon.
So for people who haven't seen it, can you describe what the Pod Zero vehicles look like?
Yeah, sure. It's a fairly compact vehicle. It needs to be because it operates in pedestrianised areas. So to operate in those areas, you need something that's relatively thin and not too big. But it also needs to be able to carry 4 passengers. So it's quite a futuristic-looking vehicle, and it's something different. You certainly wouldn't miss it.
It sort of looks like a bubble car.
Yeah, I suppose so. I'd say it's got styling which is very futuristic, and it certainly looks like the transport solution of the future. There's no doubt about that.
All right. So that's intentional by design? When you guys are sitting down, you're going to say, okay, how do we make this look like it's the future?
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 things you have to do. You have to make something look different and futuristic, but at the same time, you can't make it look scary. Because not only are we implementing a fully autonomous vehicle, but we don't want people to then be scared of the shape or feel intimidated. So there's a bit of a fine art in making something that appeals to customers and users, and so they feel comfortable traveling in our pods.
This is why I mentioned the bubble, because I remember doing a trends piece a long time ago about how in our minds we feel safer when there's something with sort of round edges and curved
exactly.
and nothing too angular, and so we're thinking, hey, the future is safe, we'll get in.
Exactly, and you're absolutely right. The vehicle's got some nice rounded surfaces on it, and it does look good. It looks really futuristic, and hopefully some of your listeners, maybe now or later on this evening, might get to see a picture or 2 of it. So,
what speeds do they travel?
So this is a relatively low-speed vehicle, so its maximum speed is 15 miles per hour. That's 15. And normally, though, it's operating just a little above walking speed, so probably around about 6 miles per hour. And the reason for that is we don't need to go too fast in the pedestrianised areas, and also we have to make sure that we accommodate the other users, the other pedestrians in the area, and also maybe people that are on bicycles. So we've got a different mixed environment for what basically the car guys would be trying to sort out on the road, but we've got our own unique set of situation that we have to accommodate. So it's a relatively low-speed transport system.
And so 24 kilometers an hour would be 15 miles
That's
per hour.
Correct.
As fast as it's going to be going. How do the pods know where to go? What's the infrastructure that's allowing them to know where they're going?
Yeah, sure. So they've got an inbuilt brain, and that inbuilt brain has got a set of pre-loaded maps. So what we do is we take a pod to an area that we might want to run round a particular route. We take the pod round, we teach them the route. That route is then stored in its internal memory, and then the pod does a special thing. It's called localization. So it first of all determines where it is on that particular route, and then once it knows where it is, it can then navigate around on that predetermined route, just like you'd punch a postcode into a normal car's nav system and allow that to navigate.
So it's learned the route. It would follow that route as it is taught, as you say.
Yes.
What happens when somebody steps out in front of it accidentally?
Well, yeah, sure. Well, I guess the severity of things. So if someone was to step out directly in front of the pod, then the pod has a separate sensor system, which is specifically separated from the main sensors, which is all about collision detection. So it would emergency stop if somebody came out in front of it. If somebody walked out in front of it, let's say some distance in front of the pod would effectively see that person, and it would start to slow its speed. And let's say that, for instance, that person was walking away from the pod. In other words, the pod was catching them up. The pod is quite clever, and it would match its speed to the person who's walking in front of it and keep a safe distance away until such time as that pedestrian moved out of the way and it could continue on its route. So it's quite an intelligent bit of kit.
What about like a cat?
Yeah, well, as you probably aware, in pedestrianised areas, you get all sorts of different objects that you have to deal with. So it actually has in its memory classification of all sorts of different objects. So it knows what a cat looks like. It knows what a dog looks like. Yeah. It knows what a small child looks like. It knows what an adult looks like. It even knows what a shopping trolley or a bicycle looks like, and it can scan. In its camera and sensor systems, it can determine what that object is. It can classify it so that it knows what it is, and then also, having classified it, it can then work out whether it's a threat to the pod. In other words, is it on a collision course or is it moving away? So the vector that the object has got is all classified, and the pod then makes a whole series of quite complex calculations to make sure that it doesn't get to interface or interact or hit that object.
What about a squirrel?
Yeah, you might be pushing the bounds a little bit. I have to admit we haven't programmed a squirrel in, but if we get any occurrences where we've got a squirrel, a high squirrel content, I guess we could program it into it.
You're moving to Ottawa. We have high squirrel contents. I'm just saying.
Well, that's good. I didn't know that. So that's something we're going to work with the partners we'll have here in Ottawa, and we can add that as part of our R&D program.
It just made me think when you said shopping trolley. I was thinking there might be a cultural jump here for things that would be a little bit different in Ottawa than it would have been there. But I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, the squirrels may not. But let's say when it is a smaller creature like that, as much as I understand, you probably wouldn't want it. What would it learn how to? What would the options be if something moves in front? You said if it's a fair distance away, it could slow down. But if something little jumps out in front, does it say, okay, I could stop right now, but it is only a squirrel, or does it take those kinds of things into account?
It takes those things into account. So the primary objective of our pod, or indeed any autonomous vehicle that anybody else is developing, is safety, safety, safety. So at all times, you know, what we don't do is run around at very high speeds just randomly. You know, it's a very selective way that we move through time and space, and we analyze what's in front of us. And to be honest with you, the pod sensor systems can detect creatures or obstacles down to very small distances, and also very small diameters of objects. So we wouldn't intentionally go and run over a squirrel.
What? That's a good thing. What made you want to set up shop in Ottawa, though? Why here?
Well, so it goes back a little way, back to last November, and we came to what's called the Intelligent Transport Show in Montreal. We spent about 5 or 6 days in Montreal, and then we came over to Ottawa for a couple of days, and with our good friends at Invest Ottawa, they took us round, and they really showed us some fantastic things that are happening in the city. I mean, over at Canada Park, where we are currently, you know, there's more than probably 70 or 80 companies, SME, small companies all the way up to big nationals, who are working in the autonomous sector. And the enthusiasm of the people, the place is just a place to do business and a place to collaborate with other companies in autonomous vehicles and autonomous components. And that it was just a natural for us to do that. So we're really pleased.
I mean, I'm emphasizing again I was assuring our traffic reporter earlier today that we're not talking about these pods being out on highways or the roads or so. So it's intended for short distances, hospitals, campuses, train stations. You must have. Is the idea that Ottawa would eventually be setting up these in areas like our airport, our train stations, our hospitals, campuses, and so on?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's the sort of buzzword phrase for the system that the vehicles we've got is called first mile, last mile, and it's those distances really that that conventional, let's say, taxis or buses don't cover, and so we provide that last or first mile mobility service. So it's relatively slow speed. It covers relatively short distances, although the pod can operate for quite some distance. So they've got about a 50-mile range on one charge, but notionally they're travelling, say, a mile or a mile and a half to take someone from one location to another.
David Keene, we'll hold it there. I know we'll be checking in with you again once this project is off and running. You've got your squirrel research to do, I understand, so we will be checking in with you again later. Thanks very much for being with us today.
Thanks, Alan. Really appreciate it. You have a good one.
You
Bye.
too. David Keene, CEO of RDM Group and Aurrigo, his electric autonomous vehicle company, is opening an office in Ottawa. Thoughts or questions for them? All in a day at cbc.ca.